Okay, I just refreshed my Google Hangouts. I think I can see the line on Google Hangouts now, not just my control panel. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Okay, so can you guys hear me now?
Okay.
Sister, you said you can hear now?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. And then just do a *6 unless you have a question or comment, or just mute the live stream since there's a delay. Yeah, I see it now. It was the computer volume was fine, but I think this doesn't refresh Google Hangouts. You have to reload it again. Okay, so once again, we're reading 2 Maccabees 11 and 12. I'm not going to do the introduction again, but if you don't know already, just check a previous video. So we linked with 2 Maccabees 11 and 4, Jeremiah 17, verses 5 and 6, which goes into how, for a man that trusteth in man maketh flesh his arm, he shall inherit the barren waste places. He won't be fruitful in his doing. And then we have a link up or a comment in the back. Yeah, can I?
Psalms 20 and 7. It says, Psalms 20 and 7 says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God.
Come to what? That's good. Let's go back to 2 Maccabees chapter 11. Let's read on in verse 5. 2 Maccabees 11 and 5. So he came to Judea and drew near to Bethsura, which was a strong town, but distant from Jerusalem about 5 furlongs, and he laid sore siege unto it. Right? So he's beginning his pursuit unto Jerusalem, but now taking out cities that are en route. Namely, this city, Bethsura. Verse 6, now when they that were with Maccabees heard that he besieged the holds, they and all the people with lamentation and tears besought the Lord, or Yahweh, he would send a good angel to deliver Israel, right? So not an odd prayer to ask for, because we know the Most High, he did this for us in times past. When you read the history, right? Even you read about when we would go to war to establish the land of Canaan as our own. You read about us getting this promise from the Most High, right? Because we know it's not just us fighting the battle; we have help from Yahweh, right? That physical strength alone can't do it, and that's where the heathen fall short. But yeah, just to link with verse 6, just a famous classic law we can always be reminded of, being encouraged by. And even since we just went through the Feast of Unleavened Bread and read about the Passover, which was what? The Heavenly Father sending his good angel down, right? To pass over our doors that had the blood of the Lamb, right? And to smite the Egyptian and their firstborn of everything. It's that 10th and final curse. So showing the Most High can send his angels to deliver us, right? As we did even back then. They're asking for the same thing at this time, for an angel to deliver them as they battle against the heathen. See, you have a puzzled look. You give me a puzzled look. You have a question? No?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last night in the class, the brother showed us exactly what actually happened when God sent that angel in Egypt and destroyed the firstborn of man and beast of the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. He showed it to us in the Apocrypha.
Right.
Did you know where that was?
Yeah, it's Wisdom of Solomon's chapter 17 through about 19.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Samak, I think he touched on some verses in that in the Tuesday class, this last Tuesday.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes, past unleavened bread services, we actually go into that for unleavened bread, but you know, it's optional. But yeah, you see, it goes into finer detail in the Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 19 about certain of the curses the death of the firstborn, the darkness, among others.
Yeah.
And it's pretty frightening.
Yeah.
You put yourself there and you go, wow, if I was an Egyptian, what would that be like? Just think, as bad as that was, when this empire was brought down America, it's going to be like that, not even on a higher level. To where the day of the Lord, whenever that happens, when Christ makes a second coming, that's going to outshine the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because right now that's like the biggest high holy day, right, that we have, as far as, great deliverance, and that's talked about, right, the Passover.
Mm-hmm.
We're still going to keep the Passover in the kingdom, obviously, but we're going to have another high holy day, which is the day of the Lord, whenever that day may be, whenever it happens. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But that day is going to even outshine the deliverance from Egypt. Just to prove that, let's get that in Jeremiah as well before we move on, since we're talking about this. So go to the previous chapter. We had Jeremiah 17. Go back to chapter 16. And check this out. And you can read this, Gabar, Baba Kushah, once you have it. Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 14. Don't link this with anything. Like I said, this is just this isn't what links with 11 and 6. We didn't get that yet. But just write this on the side. But Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 14 and 15.
All right, Jeremiah chapter 16, 14, and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers.
Right. So going into our deliverance from what we now call North America, right? When it says the land of the north. So it's going to tell that day is going to be on a higher level than the day of the Passover, as far as, deliverance and destruction on both hands. So that's something to look forward to. Go Gabar and then Yalkana.
All right, but it excludes that day of brought them out of Egypt, though.
So what?
It kind of excludes. It doesn't. It seems like it's excluding the day that they brought them out of Egypt.
Right. That's why I said I thought I already mentioned that. I said it's not to say that we're not going to keep Passover anymore and remember that deliverance. It's just saying that this new deliverance is going to be on a higher level.
I don't look at it.
Okay, how do you see it?
I see it as it's saying they're not going to talk about the day he brought them out of Egypt no more. They're going to talk about the day that he brought us out of America. That's the way I see it.
That's exactly what it's saying.
And you said they're still going to celebrate the day he brought us out of Passover.
Yeah.
But it says it's not going to celebrate that.
That's what we're doing now.
I know that's what we're doing now. But you said that we will still continue to celebrate that. But even though this new day out of America will overshadow the Passover day, but you said we still want to talk about us coming out of Egypt.
Yeah. Because we still celebrate everything else. We still celebrate the new moon, the Sabbath.
That's what the base is.
Yeah. We still celebrate the Purim.
Right, all the things.
That's deliverance too.
Okay.
But when it comes to Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, that's like a big high holiday amongst high holy days.
Right.
So what they're saying is it's like this will be the new latest and greatest talk of the town when it comes to the Most High's deliverances. But it won't be something like the Most High's like, okay, don't do this anymore. Now do this. No, do this on top of what you already do. It's just adding on.
Okay.
Just like over history, we didn't always keep the Feast of Dedication. We didn't keep this dedication until the time of the Maccabees. So this is a high holy day to come, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't keep it now. We don't know when the day of the Lord is. It hasn't happened yet. But once we do, we'll add that on to the rest of the high holy days. We'll still remember feast dedication, Purim,
just like we had, just like we
Passover.
The rest of these high holy days.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Like on a carnal level, it's like what Esau does with his amendments to the Constitution. You know what I mean? Yeah. He'll add them on, but then with him, it's like with his law, when he adds it on, it changes what he wrote before. Whereas with the Most High, it doesn't change what he wrote before, right? Because the Most High, when he adds on holy days, he knows how to do it in wisdom. Whereas with Esau, when he makes amendments, it's like, oh, okay, we have to amend it, but then it's going to affect what we already wrote, and we kind of have to, make adjustments, and everyone's confused again. What does this mean when we amend the Constitution this way, that way, or But that's that's to be expected. Because things of man are going to fall short versus things of Yahweh. And you could also, it's the same prophecy, but just you could also read Jeremiah 23, 7 and 8, saying the same thing. It's Jeremiah 16, 14 and 15. You can read that one too, Baba Bashar. And then I'll get Yalkan's comment, and then we'll get the link up for 2 Maccabees 11 and 6.
Okay, Jeremiah 23, 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land.
Right. So going into that same instance. Notice here this is seed of Israel. Right. It's not just like, oh yeah, spiritual Israel. If you believe in Jesus, you're considered Israel. Like the stuff some churches teach that lie. Let you know it's going into the nation of Israel, right? It comes from the descendants, physical descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah, even for the United States, they still celebrate Independence Day.
Yeah.
The independence, and they celebrate, all that's going, they still do it. Right? Mm-hmm. They don't forget.
Right.
Other countries, do it. So,
right.
Independence, and then make a big celebration. Day off from work, or if you work, you get double overtime, time and a half, and things like that. So they push that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to read about in verse 6. It says about a good angel, 2 Kings 19:35. And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians, and 185,000. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. So this is a good angel that came.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Powerful angel.
Come. Good for us, bad for them. And it's funny because you read, within the Maccabees, you'll see Judas even reference this history specifically. He'll say, "Deliver us the same way you did King Hezekiah." He actually says it. So we see Judas being an example of things written aforetime, written for our learning. He knew that. He used that to encourage himself and those that were with him. Yeah, just as far as the Most High setting his angel in the law, go back to Exodus 23. Exodus chapter 23, verse 20 to 23.
He's in capital.
Mm-hmm. I wonder why. As we read on, we'll get the sense of who this particular angel is, right? Because you have many gods, you have many angels, right? Or messengers. It says in Exodus 23 and verse 20, and this is heavy because, like you mentioned in the Apocrypha, there's certain, they'll say the way that it addresses this angel, we could probably pull that link with this. You'll see this angel was a special angel. I'm not sure if you guys went into that in the other class, but let's read on and we'll see. Exodus 23 in verse 20, it says, "Behold, I sent an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared." Right? So remember, they're in the wilderness at this point, right? They just came out of Egypt. And I say, I'm going to send an angel to keep you on the way, right? A particular angel. Verse 21, It says, beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not. You will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. The Most High is saying that his name is in this particular angel, right? And then here's the kicker right here, verse 22. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, so if you obey this angel's voice, you indeed will do all that I, the Most High, am saying. You know, the Most High's word. What do we know the Most High's word is being?
Say that again.
What do we know the Most High's word as? You gave him a hint. I wanted to made it easy. The Most High's word. What is he also known as? The Most High's word.
He gave me a hint. Right?
See, you know. So you can just say it.
You know what do there? It says that they want to know who this angel was that God sent to lead them into those other people's land, right? And then the hint was that they want to know who this angel was. Did you read what we read?
I'm off 22.
22?
Right.
So the hint was that the first hint was, but if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak. No, not that.
Yeah, that's one too.
The part where he said, my name is in his mouth.
Oh, 21.
Yeah.
At the end of 21?
21, okay. In 21, beware of him and obey his voice, provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. So that's the first hint. This angel that he talked about, he said, my name is in him. So who do you know whose name is in the angel? The second hint is what's that, John? That's in the book of John, where it says that who was the first Jew? What is that first Jew? The word became flesh. Do you remember that? No, who was the word became flesh? Who was it? No, it was the Son.
The Lord, yeah, but which Lord? Say it again. Who?
He said Mahashai. I guess that's another word for Jesus. Is that another word for Jesus?
Say it one more time, so I can't hear you.
I said Mahashai.
Are you saying Masha or Mashiach?
Mashiach.
Right, Mashiach. That just means Messiah. Yeah.
Okay, so that angel is Jesus. Is that what you were saying? Okay.
Here it says Mala.
That's what this is saying.
It says Mala.
That means angel or messenger. Like the name Malachi has that word in it. The name Malachi means messenger of the Lord. But let's let me finish the verse and read verse 23. It says, but if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to thine enemies and an adversary to thine adversaries. Remember, Numbers 24:8 tells you that what? The other nations are our enemies, right? Because we know they deal with idols. We're not supposed to deal with idols. So we combat against it. We're on opposite sides because we're supposed to believe in the Most High and truth. They don't. Which naturally makes us enemies, even though it starts spiritually. Verse 23, for mine angels shall go before thee and bring thee into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. See that? I'll stop there, but as you go on, it goes into everything else. But just going into the role this angel would play. Now you mentioned Wisdom of Solomon. Since we're still in the spirit of Feast of Unleavened Bread, even though it just ended. Check this out in the Apocrypha. Go to Wisdom of Solomon now. Like I said, chapter 17 through 19 is the whole story. But I just want to read one particular verse. So go to Wisdom of Solomon. Where is it? Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18. Verses 15 and 16. You link this with Exodus 23, 20 to 23. You can read that, Gabar.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18, 15, verse 15. Thy almighty word leaped down from heaven out of thy royal throne as a fierce man of war into the midst of a land of destruction.
Right, so look at this. The word of God being personified, right? Thy almighty word leapt down from heaven out of thy royal throne. Who sits on the right hand of the Most High? Anybody?
Yes, Jesus.
Are we sure? Okay, you guys oh shit, Jesus.
They don't say the right hand right there, but
No, I'm just asking because that says that in other places.
oh, okay.
Because it says his royal throne. So if you were in the heavens, like you go to like a king or a queen or whatever, and you'll see the king is there, but then he has like his queen or like his children sitting next to him, right? And that on a row oftentimes. So they get that from the Most High. So in the heavenly realm, you got the Most High, right? And who's right there? His right hand. There you have it. So it's going into him. This is before he came in the flesh, but he already had that authority in heavenly realms. All the spirits know who Christ is. So it says, as you read, that almighty word leapt down from heaven out of thy royal throne as a fierce man of war, right? Like the scripture in Exodus, right? The Lord is a man of war, so like father like son. Think of it as because when he came to Joshua in the spirit, he manifested himself and he referred to himself as the captain of the Lord's host, right? So if that both sides king, one way you could think of it is Christ being his captain of the host. Just like in kings on the earth, like David or Solomon or Rehoboam and whatnot, you always see one of the key positions you'll have the king, you'll have the high priest, right? Which is, usually one of the sons of Aaron. And you have a captain of the host, meaning the head of the army, the top general. So in the heavenly realm, Christ plays that role of the head of the Lord's host. But you read that somewhere else, right? For David, it would be Joab. Or for Solomon, it would be, I think it was Benaiah.
You just can't just come to the king. You got to go to the guy.
Right. But you read that in other places in the scriptures, namely in Joshua chapter 5, where it goes into that. But just showing that, just to show when we see him being described as man of war, we can make some sense of that. So yeah, like father, like son.
I remember saying before, Moses was I am.
Moses was I am?
No, before Moses. So they didn't understand that Jesus was Yahweh was before Moses.
Oh yeah. I think it says before Abraham was. I am.
Before Abraham.
That's what Yahweh said. Yeah, pretty much.
They didn't realize who Yahweh was. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I always say, we talk about the importance of Yahweh Shai. Go back to Genesis chapter 1. Anytime you see God said, that's Yahweh Shai. So he got to have been there since the beginning, because what was the beginning of Genesis? Power said, let there be light. Power said, let there be a firmament. Power said, let there be dry land, etc. and so forth, right? Let that firmament come together and make earth. That was Yahweh Shah at work. That was the Most High's word.
That was him. That was Jesus at work. But there still was God speaking.
Yeah, but he is the word of God. Get it?
You saying God don't talk at all? Does Jesus talk for him?
No, he is God's word. So what he says, yeah, Yahweh Shai himself talks, but he's the personification of the Most High's word. He is the word.
When he was in the mountain talking to Moses, that was God talking. That wasn't Jesus.
Yeah, but Jesus was there because he's the word. So anywhere the Bible is talking about anything that has to do with the Most High and his will being spoken, Christ is in the midst.
Oh.
You can't avoid it. Even if they have their own being, that's that connection. That's that relationship.
Me and my Father are one.
Exactly.
One accord.
Mm-hmm. So read verse 16.
All right, verse 16. And put thy unfeigned commandment as a sharp sword, and standing up fill all things with death. And it touched the heaven, but it stood upon the earth.
Right. But you can read down, it goes into more detail. But the main thing I want to focus on was chapter 18 and verse 15, where it says, thy almighty word leaped down. So it's going to that same angel that Exodus is talking about. But now the good angel that they're requesting here, it could be Yahweh Shai, not necessarily. It could be those of lower caliber, but they're all going to be following Yahweh Shai anyway because he's a captain of the Lord's host. So really nothing really escapes his jurisdiction anyway. There's a chain of command in the heavens, right? So we hear about certain angels, like we might hear about Michael or Raphael or Uriel, right? Or Gabriel. We even hear about certain unclean spirits, Satan notwithstanding. They're all under the Yahweh Shai as far as ranking, right?
It's not like man. Sometimes you have anarchy. You know, you want to use up the authority of the captain. You know, of the king, and it's anarchy. You know, who's his right hand, whatever. And all of a sudden, the king is dead, and all of a sudden, the captain of the host sees the king, and chaos.
Yeah.
But it's an order in the heaven.
Right. And that's a lie they push that, you know, oh, there was a fallout between certain angels and the Most High kicked certain ones out. And that can't be the case, because otherwise, how do you explain Job? Because they were talking about Job way after the beginning, before creation. They try to say that whole fall y'all happened before Adam and Eve. Now, why is Satan coming into the heavenly realm? No problem. And him and the Most High having a conversation. There's no beef between the two of them. They're both speaking their piece. It just doesn't make sense. Read the scriptures versus the stories we've been told growing up.
Okay, we got to do a class on that then about that fallout that we talk about.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we had it before, but there's really no class on it. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's just a lie.
But no, there's actually something in there that's saying that something went wrong with it. Now, one of them was when he threw the white man out. It's talking about him throwing the white man out. There's another one, I think, in Revelations, where he supposedly.
Yeah. And I know what you're talking about. It says war in heaven. It's a stumbling block because we understand the milk. We didn't get to that question last night in the class. I wanted to ask what the three heavens are, which I know Samak, he's done more than one class on the different heavens, the three heavens and the two hells. But the heaven that verse is talking about what? The rulership on earth. When you read it in the context, it's going into the warfare is going to happen when Christ makes the second coming down here on this plane, not up there in the what we call the third heaven. But most of the so-called scholars, Christian scholars, they read that and think it's talking about the third heaven. It's not. It's talking about the lowest heaven as far as what Esau and his government trying to fight against the angels when they go to war in that third world war. But yeah, we gone into that before. We can definitely do it again. But yeah, a lot of the churches, they get confused with it. And they think that, oh, it's talking about something's going on in the heavenly realm. So,
Right. Yeah.
if the scripture said it, we would teach it, but it's just not there. Just like when we talk about the color of Christ, right? People say, oh, why does color matter? You know, why does race matter? And it's just like, it doesn't, but the truth does, right? We know race is something that Esau came up with anyway. Who's that guy? This German guy. He's like the one who coined race. Before you just had nationalities, tribes, right? You still have that. But they're the ones that coined race. They try to say everybody was 3 races, which is nonsense. When you read the scriptures in the Table of Nations, it's just not true. They say the 3 races were what? Caucasoid, Africoid, and I think Mongoloid. Right? They try to break everybody down into 3 races. This guy named Blumenbach, right? He's the one who coined or began the coining of race. And later on, you had it, being something that was used to, push white supremacy as far as mistreatment of others based on, skin color. Because that's a relatively new phenomenon, right? It's only a couple hundred years old versus nationality, which is going on for millennia.
It did not exist back then.
Right.
All of Africans when they came against us like that.
No, nationality was always there as far as us versus other nations. But as far as race, saying, okay, I'm black, I'm lighter than you, I'm darker than you, it wasn't on that level. It was just, oh, okay, I came from this tribe or this family. I came from this nation.
You know what I'm saying? How the white man pushed racism. If that had existed back then them Africans wouldn't have joined them when they were trying to fight the Maccabees back. Because they would have said, no, he's gonna make niggas anyway. Even though we ain't niggas, we still black. You see what I'm saying? Yes. I'm saying if racism existed back then, then the Africans would not have joined with the Greeks to destroy us, because they would have said the Greeks don't like dark people anyway, they're racist. That's what I'm saying.
Oh well, I would say they still would have, because they know that they're not the same as us.
Yeah,
anyway,
at the same time, they know that whites don't like no black people in the world, not on whether they are Jews or heathens. We still don't really care about them. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but back then you had whites that didn't like other whites. You read throughout Maccabees, the Greeks were going against the Romans. The Romans were the next Edomites that were coming up. They were a different group from the Greeks, even though they were related and you go back on their family tree. So it was more about, nationality as far as, sharing common ancestry. Sometimes you might have conflict within the same nation of people, just different tribes, if you will. You know what I mean?
But if you go back far enough, all the whites came from one white person, right?
But look at Israel. Look at the split between the northern and the southern kingdom.
Right.
We all come from Jacob, but you read about us. We had wars over many years. People talk about, us beefing with, so-called Latinos in the ghetto and stuff, gang warfare and stuff like that. But that goes way back. You read Kings and Chronicles.
Right.
We actually allied with heathens against each other. You're reading the Kings and Chronicles, the Judah versus Israel. So it's like, how does that work? Yeah. How you gonna get together with the Assyrians or the Syrians to go to war with your own brothers? That happened in history, more than one occasion. So even that was tribal warfare, even though we were the same nation. So, y'all will come and then some more.
I just want to read this quickly. Deuteronomy 32:8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
Okay, read verse 9.
For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance.
Right. Okay, so showing how the Most High divided the nations according to the different descendants that came from Adam much later through the sons of Noah. Since we know everybody was repopulated through Noah and his children. So it was more of a dividing line based on nationality, not so much just skin color, which was more so superficial. Remember, Esau's only people that lacked that pigment anyway. Even they didn't get along with each other, let alone get along with other Hamite nations. Sometimes they did. we know their pantheon of gods and goddesses, they borrowed from the Hamites anyway. As far as the Greek and Roman gods, they just borrowed their gods and changed the name, make them look like them. But yeah, you could say that you can see the beginnings of that, them kind of pushing themselves as God through, you see it on their pottery, and you see how they depicted their gods through certain, like I said, artwork, like work on their pots. And then, of course, we see it in the more recent history with their Renaissance paintings, right? This is when race became on the scene. We try to use just how they look as a means of pushing themselves as being smarter, stronger, better than those that don't. Like I said, that's something that's more late in history, right? That didn't really get manifest until a couple hundred years ago.
Just back to the comment about racism, if that had existed back then. And I think what you were kind of alluding to, that it was racism back then because people were always for their own race or their progression or the, glory for what they want to do as far as conquering land. But even as we're reading the Maccabees, as the Greeks and the Romans were there jousting for power, and they were coming and oppressing Israel, there was times when Israel went and made bonds and pacts with them. Judas made a pact with the Romans, then he came made a bond and pact with Demetrius. So, and they was trying to kill us. So based on opportunity of being able to live and survive and keep the Most High's laws, you made agreements with certain people. Happens today, based on opportunity, based on being able to achieve certain things, you'll have rival nations make agreement and a pact with one another for the common good of them taking down somebody else. Like the policies and the politics always plays out where you're saying the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but then later on, he's back my enemy again, right? Because of what's maybe going on at that moment for you to excel or succeed or sustain yourself.
Right. Now, the reason why I said it didn't exist, just as far as the wording, I try to stay away from the word racism, for back then it was more of a nationalism, which you still have today. It's just been convoluted with racism, because with the racism and the creation of race and defining people based on race, the skin color factor comes in, which isn't a part of nationalism. You know what I mean? Even though you could look at certain nations and say, okay, they tend to have certain features, it wasn't something that was used as a defining factor. Because with racism today, you have people of different nationalities that are grouped together in the same race. And that's just not true. You know what I mean? That's why I say with racism, it's kind of Esau trying to change things around on his own terms, based on trying to use just his skin color as a means of pushing supremacy. And like I said, but back in ancient times, you didn't have that. Esau didn't even do that back then. Even though he may have, took pride himself, that, that modeling of race, as we see today, that's more of a newer phenomenon. And to define people according to a race, that's something that's newer. Even though looking back on it, we could say, oh yeah, you had this nationality, that nationality. To call them a race, it's to take everything that goes with what makes someone of a certain race. It's not the same. Okay, we're talking about all this now. Interesting. So we linked the Exodus 23:20-23 and Wisdom of Solomon 18:15 and 16 about the angel. All that linking with 2 Maccabees 11 and 6. As far as the best angel of all, right, Yahweh Shai, which we know he's an angel, yes, but he's more than an angel, because I want to make sure we don't get confused there either, because you have other religions in particular, they'll say, yeah, we believe that Christ was a prophet. Some may say, you believe that Christ was an angel, but as far as him being the Son of God, we don't know about that. He was definitely the Son of God as well, the only begotten Son of the Most High. But with the scriptures, you have one of other messages, the only begotten Son, Christ, but then you have sons of God, which refer to, in certain contexts, collective, like in Job. Or you have sons of God even referring to men as a collective, like you read in Genesis chapter 6. So that's where context is important. And okay, while we have sons of God, while we have angels, even gods. We know we have the Most High God, right? We have the Son of God, Christ, right? Which is referred to as an angel at times. He's also referred to as the captain of the Lord's host, among other things. And we have God, the Most High, I think I said that right, gods, and we have messengers, right? Which we know can be Christ, as we're seeing here. We're reading about Christ in particular. But then you also have messengers too that aren't necessarily the most Christ, but could be, you know, another angel, whether it be Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, right? Or even an angel even below them. They would come to our forefathers before too, and even come to the heathen, and they would be messengers also. And even check this out, the apostles, right? Those that were under Christ, that word apostle means messenger. So you could call the apostles of Christ, you can call them angels too, right? Like I remember, you might remember Basadar back in the day. Remember he had that cat where he was like, we're angels in the flesh. Remember he said that? So he's right to where we're supposed to be like angels in the flesh. Us in Israel know the truth. We're supposed to be like those righteous examples of what they are, but on a physical plane, as far as, you know, what we say, what we do. But for most people, when they hear God or they hear angel, right, or they hear, you know, Lord, they get confused. They get mixed up. They think it's only talking about Christ, only talking about the Heavenly Father, only talking about this. But it's just not true. You read the scriptures. Understand it. It can't all the time. Okay. So let's read verse 6 again and continue. So 2 Maccabees chapter 11, verse 6. Now when they that with Maccabees heard that he besieged the holds, they and all the people with lamentation and tears besought the Lord, and he will send a good angel to deliver Israel, right? Which we know could be a number of angels, right? But from where we're coming from, it really doesn't matter if it's Christ or Michael or whoever. We just want that deliverance, which we know ultimately comes from the Lord, because we know we're not going to make a mistake and worship angels. The scriptures even speak against that, because you can't worship a messenger, right? You either worship the creator of the heavens and earth and the powers that be, whether visible or invisible, right? Our worship goes back to the Most High, always. And at best, we worship him through his son Christ, since we know that he's our mediator. But besides that, you don't read about any worship beyond those two, the Most High and his son Christ. Anything beyond that, now you begin to, what's the word? You begin to idolize, because you can't idolize the creature more than the creator. So reading on in verse 7, it says, then Maccabeus himself, first of all, took weapons, exhorting the others that they would jeopard themselves or put themselves in danger, together with him to help their brethren. So they went forth together with a willing mind, right? So they were all encouraged, right? That the Most High would be with them as they went to expel the Greeks trying to take over. Verse 8, and as they were at Jerusalem, there appeared before them on horseback one in white clothing, shaking his arm of gold. Check that out. So Most High heard their prayer, and he sent some help, right? Because as we see here, you read from the context, this is just talking about, you know, some brother that was, you know, living in the land that got dressed up. Now this brother from somewhere else, right? This is beyond a brother from another mother, right? Like the angel said to John, right? See that thou worship not, I and thy brother and fellow servant, right? So it says, there appeared before them on horseback one in white clothing, shaking his armor of gold. Verse 9, and they praised the merciful power altogether, and took heart, insomuch that they were ready not only to fight with men, but with most cruel beasts, and to pierce through walls of iron, right? So now with this encouragement, seeing, you know, the angel manifest itself, we go, oh man, Most High is with us, let's go. We don't care about whatever they got, right? Whether it's just, you know, infantry or cavalry or horseback, or them riding elephants, right? Different beasts. You know, anytime you see, you know, men using beasts in warfare, it's like, oh, you know, they got iron chariots, or they got, you know, guys on horseback. You know, like with the cavalry, oftentimes their units are a lot smaller than infantry, right? And with cavalry, they can do a lot more damage. They're running fast. They may have a spear, taking out 2 or 3 guys at once. So it's like, oh, they got horses. We're just on foot. Fall back. They're like, look, the hell with that. We got the angel on our side. So we can take on even horsemen, even guys riding on elephants with catapults and all that. We can do it because they can't beat who we got.
Like, they have missiles. Like, I don't care. I got the angel with me.
Bring it to 2,000.
I sent the angel to help us fight. So it's like that backing makes you invincible. It's like, I know the angel's invincible. Heck, if he's fighting with me, it's like I'm invincible.
Yeah. I like that he brought up to today's time. Angels, right? I mean, missiles.
Fighter jets and all this other stuff that they have now, and lasers and all kind of crazy weapons they have. Don't mean anything to them.
Nope. Just think about the angels. The angels, they made the sun, moon, and stars. Right? Through power of the Most High in Christ, they created the heavens and the earth. So think of something that can create something like a star or like the sun. What the hell is a man-made missile or a nuke going to do to them? Put it in perspective. Esau talks about, the sun and how hot it is and it burns. And, the angels made that.
That's why when you watch certain movies of either movies that talk about aliens or even like certain superheroes or fantasy movies, where you have the enemy who has all these supernatural powers, and they come up with things that they had not seen before, but man comes up with super wisdom to be able to defeat that which he has no clue about. Right? It's like they always find a way. So you look at that and you say to yourself, those who are viewing this is giving them that thought, that inspiration that, regardless of what comes, we're superior in mind, that we can always conquer and defeat them.
Right. That's why Prometheus in the Greek legend is such a prominent image for Esau. Like you see at Rockefeller Center, they got him like this sideways, holding the flame. Because and according to their myth, he stole fire from the gods and then gave it to man and taught them, metalwork and things like that, how to build technology. So like that's still a similar use to this day as that motivating factor to say, we can take on the gods and win. You see that theme, over and over again with the new movies they make based on those Greek mythology. Like, what was that movie they just did? It was a remake, the Titans, the Wrath of the Titans, Crash of the Titans. There's a scene in that where you see the people, they're all, somewhere in Greece, and the lady's, making these boastful statements. She's like, the gods haven't helped us for so long. They're like, we are the gods now. And Hades shows up, the god, he's supposed to be the god of the underworld. And then he looks at it, he's like, what could be more beautiful than death? And he causes it to become old, right off the bat. But you see that theme with Esau, this whole thing of, the children killing the parents before, you're not supposed to harm your parents. Or the gods killing the titans that made them. And then mankind killing the gods that made them. It's like this constant, destroying that created you. Only give rise to the next thing, which you now have to watch out or watch your back to make sure that this thing doesn't destroy you now. Even with man make a machine, this sci-fi, it continues that same mythology of the machines taking power and then them taking over their gods or mankind. So it's a thing you constantly see with Esau, but we read the scriptures, there's no place for it. Since you mentioned it, if you could, we need this motivation. Isaiah 54. Isaiah 54 verses 16 and 17. As you brought to today's time, even the scriptures talk about today's time too, that we have the Elohim on our side, even something of today's caliber of technology still can't do a thing against the Most High Christ and the angels. So we could read that, Baba Rashad, Isaiah 54, 16 and 17.
Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16. Behold, I created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I created the waster to destroy.
Check that out. So the Most High, he's going to create the smith. We got blacksmith, goldsmith, silversmith. Bringing up from that time up until now. Now you have, science, engineering, right? taking those same arts and building more elaborate things. Most High made all that, gave man inspiration to do all those things, right? Even us in Israel, right? We know how many things that even we have invented, even in our captivity, right? Along with the heathen. So the Most High made the smith that blew up coals in the fire to bring forth an instrument for his work, right? Because the craftsman thinks, okay, I'm building it for myself, or because I got a contract with the government or whoever. But really, it's the Most High. It's all for the Most High, whether they realize it or not. I've created the waster to destroy, right? So anything that lays waste, well, it could be on a short level, or on a small level, or on a grand scheme, a grand level, right? With nuclear weapons, like that article you sent, Samak, about the China and Russia outlined themselves. And on that article, it shows the video of like China's armament, all the different technology they have to use for war. The Most High made all that. He put this. He created the men, gave them the inspiration to make all these things. Everywhere you look, you can read 17 now. Here's the key.
Verse 17, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in the judgment, so like in judgment shall condemn. Thou shalt condemn.
Mm-hmm.
This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith Yahweh.
Right. So here it is said very specific. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Any type of weapon, right? Now, even though we know we're reading about physical weapons, that's even mental, spiritual weapons too. Because we know what Esau, he's got different types of weapons, right? Propaganda is a weapon, right? They tell you lies about who you are and about who invented what and who started this. That's considered a weapon as well. False religion, right? Claiming to follow this, that's a weapon too. So it says, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. Every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh. So we oftentimes don't talk about the perks that come with following the Most High in Christ. You know, we talk about, okay, we got to endure affliction, right? We got to, overcome different types of temptations, right? And, we talk about that side of things, but we don't oftentimes talk about the perks that come with following the Most High in truth. The things you get as benefits, even right now, let alone what we're going to have in the kingdom. So let's not forget, that we got a serious benefits package for, going through what we go through as far as issues with family and friends, not following the same things, keeping the same holidays and being, ostracized. Don't forget, as tough as that may be, remember the reward that you get for doing it. Remember the backup that you have now that a lot of people that are in the world, they just don't have. I don't care how many, guns you store in a cellar, right? Or you might, have a wine cellar. You go, okay, I got my wine set aside for Molotov cocktails in case there's some kind of conflict. I got to defend my family, or I got to go to the government building or city hall and throw firebomb it or something, right? To get some kind of peace because we're being attacked. What's that going to do against what Esau's government has, especially in the West? But they got all types of soldiers ready, all types of weapons that they test out these different wars overseas. You might hear about some of the things that happen and them testing their more advanced weapons, and they decide to use that on a population. You're not going to stand a chance. I don't care how prepared you are. But now with us that know the truth, we got the Most High behind us. We got the good angels behind us. We just a good angel behind us, and we can be confident, right? Because we see here Most High, in previous battles, we see he had more than one guarding Judas as they went in the battle. Now we just got one, just that one. And with Hezekiah, right? Just says one angel came down and took out their entire army, almost 200,000 men. So they woke up corpses. Hey, wake up dead. One angel, and Christ is coming with the thousands of heaven. So it says 1 hour. The Most High one, he could probably end it in 1 minute with power like that. Mm-hmm. But he says in 1 hour, this whole thing's gonna be over. So that's the power behind us when we follow the truth.
I said even man, certain countries or certain people that have their bunkers, right? Mm-hmm. And they had bunker busters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can imagine an angel could bust. Yeah. They have their, iron concrete, whatever, bunker below the ground.
Yeah.
And they are bunker bust that up.
Oh yeah. Or these lead boxes I've seen that they say they can withstand a nuclear blast. They said they're not so sure if it's at ground zero. If you're like a distance away, you can stay in this like metal box. It's about nuclear blast. I'm just like, how do they regulate the temperature inside this thing? You know, like, who's to say, okay, you're not getting burnt up, but the heat from outside cooks you inside. Pretty much. After the nuclear blast is over, ding, ding. Guess what? Guess who's done? You're done. You open the door, you're inside cooked. And then imagine if they do build something like that. You're going to wish you died with a nuclear blast, because after that comes, the angels got to come to pick up the rest. You're going to wish you died by the nuclear blast.
One more.
Oh, man.
Isaiah 2:19. And they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty when he ariseth to shake terrible the earth.
Come.
Isaiah 2:19.
And that's even its own topic, right? Because many other verses that go into that too, as far as the heathen and our people who are confused, trying to hide in the ground, trying to go in the water. Even for those that got resources, like go up into space. Wasting your time.
Esau thinks he has a chance.
Come, so let's see if this Esau back then has a chance. So 2 Maccabees chapter 11. I'll read 9 again and continue. It says, then they praised the merciful power altogether and took heart, insomuch that they were ready not only to fight with men, but with most cruel beasts, and to pierce through walls of iron. Right? So, like you were saying, Samak, we have that same confidence in the Most High that no matter what they bring against us, we'll be all right. If the Most High wills it that we die a martyr's death, because that could happen too, that our resurrection is even better. So we win, or we win even more, right? So this picture, it's like a crown that's going to be, you know, this much gold or even more gold. You know, you still get that crown. Verse 10, thus they marched forward in their armor, having a helper from heaven, right? The man in white that was sent down. For the Lord was merciful unto them. Verse 11, and giving a charge upon their enemies like lions. They slew 11,000 footmen, 1,600 horsemen, right? So, you know, infantry and cavalry getting that work. And put all the other to flight, right? So that wasn't a small force that the heathen had. But we know when it comes to the Most High, when he enters the picture, numbers don't matter. Remember this, the lesson that the Most High had to teach Gideon and those with him. Most High kept telling Gideon, because he was one of the judges the Most High raised up to deliver us, I think, from the Midianite captivity back then during the time of Judges. He kept sending men back and saying, nope, too many men. He finally got down to 300. He said, okay, now fight the battle, because you're going to say yourself, my own arm was battle if it weren't for the Lord. So he did that for our sakes. Cut down the total number of minds of men. Weights, yeah, my own strength is the one that took them down. So just not realizing that thing, the better Samah, you know, than y'all can.
When you look at the number and us having an angel, and they, you know, outnumbered us, is because we had that angel. That angel was able to help us in overcome. Doesn't matter what the number of the sides are. When you look at Esau's army, as far as the actual people, don't outnumber like the Russians or the Chinese or the Elamites. They don't outnumber them. They have less in number. But when it comes to their weapons, like their aircraft, they almost quadruple the next person that's closest to them with numbers of aircraft. So they can go and just fly over. They don't have to send people. Just fly over, just drop bombs, fly over, and just go up. And they rely on that. So again, when you look at what the Most High sends for help, it's like you can have 100,000 of them things. It doesn't even matter because you're going with the Most High. And you now have one that can take out your whole fleet.
Right.
but they rely on those things. So usually when you look at where we get our inspiration from, our inspiration is not coming from trust in the weapons or trust in this. It's for the resiliency of us as a people and what we're fighting for. Ishmael kind of almost has some of that on the, false God side.
Yeah.
That they fight based on their belief. Whereas Esau and those that are allies, they don't have that same regard. It's based on vengeance and anger. That's why they fight. Whereas others fight for it. That's why when they do that, I remember when they first started the Gulf War, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, it was like they were fearful. Like, how do you fight against somebody who's not afraid to die?
Yes.
Like, they're not afraid to die. I'm afraid to die. Like, I don't want to go in there. I want to make it back home. These guys are going in like, listen, if I die, I don't care. I'm going in with the intent that that's what I'm going to do in order to be a martyr. So it's like, how do I fight with that? Because they're not fighting for a real purpose. Right. So in the same sense, when you look at it for us, when we read the Maccabees, we didn't have that same inspiration to want to fight. Even though we're defending ourselves, we didn't come with the, I'm angry, I'm just mad, I just want to go and, nah, it's not the same thing.
Come. And what you said is key. And even Esau knows this. He'll talk about this in his military schools. Hearts and minds is everything. You have to win the hearts and minds of the people, because the only other option is wiping everybody out. And how is America looking like the hero? They kill everybody. That's why they lost in Vietnam, because it was so easy for them to point out, because the French tried to be in there at first, so they already knew about the West being in their country. So when the Americans came in, it was just like, it was so easy for them and their resistance to say, look, these guys, they're the enemy. You're not against the enemy. They want to encroach on our land, our resources, etc., our way of life. And they have the same trouble, like you said, in the Middle East, because it's so easy to point them out and go, oh, they're the enemy. We dress like this, we worship like this, you guys don't. You guys are not us. So their first line is always to see if they can somehow appeal to the masses, appeal to their leadership, to say, okay, we're here to help, we're here to give this, even though they have their objective to take what they want, but they know it's best they can win hearts and minds. It's tough to do, especially with America's track record. Come.
It's like it's how they win the war and so on and so forth, and they're trusting themselves, and they boost up themselves. Like in First Maccabees, chapter 1 and 3, and it says, and he went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
First Maccabees.
And of course, that's the final option. They just don't bow willingly out of fear. It's okay, fine, just come on in and do what you want, just don't kill us. If they still resist, get out of here, then they'll say, okay, now we'll blow you up. Or we'll have like some terrorists get found in your land and say, oh, we're attacking the terrorists, all the while we're throwing off your entire government, everything you have built there. Yeah, Esau's a mess. Let's continue. It says in verse 12, many of them also being wounded escaped naked, and Lysias himself fled away shamefully and so escaped. So they ran away with their tails between their legs. And so us, through the power of the Most High, and like we read about, that good angel gave them that work. They couldn't handle. 13, who, as he was a man of understanding, casting with himself what loss he had, and considering that the Hebrews could not be overcome because the Almighty power helped them, he sent unto them. So, on a level of understanding, just looking at logistics, he saw how much he lost and realized, oh man, anytime the Jews ally themselves with their God, we know we don't have a chance. Just like we see in other scriptures, right, where the heathen will acknowledge, okay, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Anytime our people, whether it be a few of us or a good number of us, are following the Lord, it's like we can't really use our devices against them. But if we can, appeal to their lower nature, get them to follow these gods, get them to eat stuff they shouldn't eat, get them to, be out of favor with their God, then yeah, we can have a field day. Come right in, right? That's why, with even Esau now, he's not too worried because the masses of us follow his, lifestyle, culture, mentality, which, keeps us separate from our God. But now as more of us wake up, don't think without a shadow, don't doubt for a fact that, there's some agency somewhere or some department of some agency or agencies looking at our progression and going, so many of them, so many groups, they're not related, but they're just waking up more and more, following their God. You got to do something. At least those groups that know, okay, the potential, what that means. But it's like tears with them because a lot of them don't know. A lot of them is just like, okay, they're just some religious group. We got to just keep an eye on and make sure they want to, use physical weapons to try to blow up public places or attack churches or attack, so-called white people or whatever. We want to make sure that at least we can nip that in the bud. But then you have a smaller group that understand that there's more to what it is that we do as far as knowing that we're Jews and Hebrews following truth. But as far as who knows what, it's tough to say. But like I said, a lot of Esau just doesn't know. They just think that it's just some religious group that's not following American ways. Keep an eye on them as far as like they would Islam. But the smaller group of Esau knows there's really power behind what it is that we're doing. But you don't really see too many of them, out and about like that. And if you do, you wouldn't know. And they wouldn't let you know. You just kind of look at them. Oh, that's what you got going on here, That's little, public speaking engagement you have here. Little activism you got going on here. That's nice.
These are probably, your real historians. Like not when I say real, if it's on real, like you have some that actually know the history of nations and know the history relation to the scriptures. Like how you have even the low-level Edomites who will come out and make videos and say, yeah, these guys are the Israelites. Like if they know, you have some top-notch right have influence that control certain systems and things. So when you look at it from that perspective, and you see the same thing in Judah, you see the same thing here in the Maccabees, where after a while the nation comes to the system and realize it's just not them. It's just them. It's them and their God together. When they're in harmony with their God, that's it. So it's always going to be the concerted effort to kind of erase our history from our minds, right? Whatever meaning. That's why I tell you in Jeremiah, it tells you in Psalms, that listen, we gotta take them off the face of the earth. We gotta get them out. And it's not just a physical thing; it's a mental thing. If we could just destroy their minds, we good. Like Quran mentioned on the panel, so we still want to work them.
Right.
We still want them here. We just want to destroy their minds. If the mind is destroyed, we can profit all day off of it. So those ones that's out there, those pocket groups and little areas all over here, they're watching. They're seeing it spread throughout the four corners, going from the U.S. to South America to Europe. They're seeing how it's starting to pop up all over the place. So I know they're watching, but they don't want to put too much spotlight on it.
Right.
If you put too much spotlight on it, then you kind of aid in what the whole cause is, right?
Exactly.
Because now people got to start planning, like, what is going on with these guys? And it becomes now a big light, and now everybody's starting to pay attention, and you're going to have a percentage of them that's paying attention now that's going to realize and say, yeah, but these guys is really speaking the truth. So they don't really want to highlight it. It's not put out there on blast. It's like we're just going to watch it from the sideline. We're going to wait for them to do something stupid, wait for someone to do something stupid, take a clip and put that out there to give them negative press. Nobody wants to, associate themselves with them and think that they're a cult or whatever. But we just won't give them too much time, too much spotlight.
That's the strategy. I remember Zabak, he did that like an older video talking about like media block on the Israelites and kind of going to that same idea because it's a power move. Anything you can't control, you have to dismiss it as like insignificant, right? To show as if to put out the portrayals that you have power over it, right? Like that's the technique. Like you said, you give it too much attention, then it's just like, oh, they're worried about what we're doing. Okay, it just has us get rooted even more. And we have to make sure we deal with that in our own minds too, because we always talk about this. Esau is the top empire now, and we know that growing up in this society, we worship them to a certain extent, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. It may not be like bowing down, but as far as things they say or do or produce, we give it a certain ear. So as we wake up to who we are as a people and the power of the Most High and His law, you know, that's a process for some of us too, as far as, you know, getting that mentality out of our head. Having, you know, everything we do and everything that we teach in truth revolve around them. Yeah, there's prophecies pertaining unto them, right? They got the shortest book out of all the prophets, right? But it completely shows their fate. But we got, you know, bigger fish to fry. We got to deal with our people deceived by them, right? And how can we do that if we ourselves are still, you know, eating at the master's table, you know, whether it be not necessarily physically, but even like mentally, as far as things to come up with. Take note of it. Take note of the scriptures and the prophecy associated with it, and use that to wake up our people, right? Build ourselves up. Show the power that we have through the Most High, through the angels. Because I'm even flashing back to a camp when I think we were just talking about, you know, Illuminati or whatever. We just brought it up at the camp, right? And, you know, certain Esau in top places. And then, you know, brother came to the camp and he was looking at the signs for a little bit. And he's just like, oh, no, where you going? Like, we got to read Isaiah 54 and 16 to him. Telling him, like, look, you don't have to worry about their elite. They're watching anyway. But here's the thing. They have to hear this too, because they have to be warned, let alone our people. And before we could even show him the power that was behind us, you know, he ran away out of fear. Because, you know, our people are funny. We'll say, oh, it's a free country, you know. But when it comes to talking about certain topics, you probably see with your family and friends, oh, don't talk about that. You know they listening. And it's just like, well, I thought it was a free country, right? Freedom of expression. You just said that. But yet, you know not to say or do certain things because we're now in society. There won't be a law against it, right? There's actually laws for it. But then what do? Very quietly, they show what? Anybody who bucks up against the system, we see that they die mysteriously. They have some kind of car accident. They get some kind of illness, right? Or some sort of disaster takes place and they end up dying, or they get trapped in the car and burnt up. You know, we'll say to ourselves, you know, that we process that. It's like, okay, there's no actual thing saying, okay, Esau's government through law enforcement, the FBI came and locked them down. But you'll see they had some kind of accident, and it'll be mysterious as far as how that happened. But what registers in our mind is, even though we can't prove it was somebody in charge, so let me be careful about what I talk about on the phone, or what I say online, or what have you. You know? Because we know that there's somebody watching, you know, in the shadows, and usually it work for them, and they'll take us out and make it look like an accident. You know, they keep instilled in our people, even their own people who are, you know, rebelled against their movement. See the link with 11 and 13, Judith chapter 11 and verse 10. Once again, Judith chapter 11 and verse 10. I'll read it briefly, then we'll continue. Judith chapter 11 and verse 10. You see one of his leaders, I think he was an Ammonite, but he was a heathen. He acknowledges the same wisdom looking at the Jews during this time, because I think Holofernes was like a top general under Nebuchadnezzar or Nebuchadnezzar. You see it spelled different ways, but that king of Babylon during this time. Judith chapter 11 and verse 10, he says this to Holofernes, this I guess this official of his. It says, therefore, Lord and governor, talking to Holofernes, reject not his word, but lay it up in thine heart, for it is true. For our nation shall not be punished, neither shall the sword prevail against them, except they sin against their God. So we see the heathen once again in this instance acknowledging our power with the Most High. You read verse 9, I think it says his name is Achior.
I read the one in chapter 5, verse 21.
Okay.
Where it says the same thing. This is the first encounter when he was talking with the heathen. He says, but if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them, and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. Right? So he knew, he said, listen, now that they with their God, just keep it moving. Keep it moving. Don't even stop there, because if you do, we're gonna be made a mockery in front of everybody. Yeah. It's just the way it is. And then when you read up, he just went through a little bit of history showing that, listen, this is what happened in the past. When they was with their God, their God fought for them. When they didn't stand by their God, this is what happened. But now they with their God. Don't even go over there.
What is this one?
This is Judah chapter 5. I read verse.
Same Judah?
Same Judah. I read from, I just read verse 21. I mean, 21. 5 and 21. But you can start from verse 17. 5, 17 to 21.
Nice.
It's the same thing in conjunction with what Khan just read.
Nice. To add with the, usually you just pull 11 and 10, right? So you got the some added arsenal. And we won't go into it, but you know, all the verses with like Rahab and Joshua. We were first becoming a nation after leaving Egypt. You had the heathen. But that was like, you didn't really be a historian then, because that was like recent. And you know, Egypt was it. They were big. So it's like everyone that was fresh in everybody's memory. Because everyone that was around, not just the Egyptians, they heard about what happened. Like we were talking about earlier, Brother Gabar, with the Most High deliverance out of Egypt. That was big news. That thing went around. So as we were spreading out, even after 40 years going into Canaan, it was still known by the Canaanites. Like, oh, we know about you guys. We heard what happened in Egypt with all those plagues. And you guys are following your God. Hey, spare me. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't destroy me. Exactly. Yeah. Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I hear.
Right. Speaking about this, it reminds me of I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago when Brother Simmons asked about why don't the Most High send the same type of signs and things that we had in the past, like what the angels were reading now. Okay. When you read until when we were in the captivities because of sin, all of those weren't like times where it just happened instantaneously. It was and some of those captivities, it was a long period of time before the Most High sent the deliverer, where an angel or any celestial presence came. Egypt is a good example of that, right? 400 years of just straight oppression. So now when we put it up to today's time, it's almost the same thing of almost the same length of time of being in oppression, but now we're coming toward the tail end of that. Now at the end of that one, the Most High did send a deliverer, and then the Most High did send his angel, Yahushua, and the rest to go and defend and help fight against the Egyptians. Same thing's going to happen here, because like you just mentioned earlier, Yahushua's coming, not with one, not with two, but 100,000 angels. Like the whole host of heaven is coming. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's going to be a few. You're not that. I mean, I was listening to Ron here when you read in Jeremiah 16. The magnitude of it is why it overshadows everything else. Because it was just a few that came when we came out of Egypt, that chariot that led us through. Right. All of them is coming. Yeah, when you read the Revelation, 100,000 thousands is coming with Yahushua. So when you put that in the perspective of why the Most High, it's just let the Most High's timetable play out. We didn't get it right away instantaneously when we was in Egypt. Right. There's other captivities that we fell into other nations where the Most High still had to wait us out for us to repent and then come back to our right mind. Right. So it's the same thing right now. We're trying to build up that 144, build up the righteous within Israel, and then the Most High is going to be said, oh, it's time to go, right? But we're still in that. We got to get all the kinks out, right? You just don't want to just send it. He wants us to be sincere in us getting those kinks out and repenting and then trying to do the right thing. And then he'll send that sign. He'll send that angel. He'll send those plagues. Imagine if those plagues happened back then, those 10 that we read, right? And they didn't know about those plagues until the Most High sent Moses to them, right? We don't know what kind of plagues the Most High is about to bring right now. Outside of the lake of fire, you don't know what other type plagues the Most High has in mind that's going to happen here during this period of time. That's going to supersede that. talking about the darkness and everything else. You don't know what other kind of things the Most High have planned for here.
Right.
So they're coming. They're just slowly building up, but it's about us right now. The angel is watching us to see, get ourselves together, and then he'll come and defend. At least the angel right now is like, it's too early, right? Because everybody it's going to be insincere for some.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the angel. What angel is that? That's for the Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew. Yeah, I'm a Hebrew now. That angel's for the Hebrew. That's who I'm with. Right? Nah, we want it to be sincere.
Can't switch sides there.
Everything got to do on the time basis, man.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You said make yourself Jews, right? And for real?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You just read the Maccabees. Antiochus, right?
Yeah.
I'll do this, I'll do that. And it's like, too late.
Yeah.
I stink. God, his men could not stand his smell. Like, only imagine what that smelled like. This his own men were like, oh, Antiochus, boy, you are kicking.
What's wrong with you? Something done let up and died in you. Oh, you're literally dying.
It's still alive.
Yeah.
So let's back to 2 Maccabees 11. Let's continue. So now he's checking his pride because his pride got checked. So now he's going to respond to the Jews like this. Who, as he was a man of understanding, cast with himself what loss he had had, in considering that the Hebrews could not be overcome because the Almighty power helped them. He sent unto them and persuaded them to agree to all reasonable conditions, and promised that he would persuade the king that he must needs be a friend unto them. Then Maccabees consented to all that Lysias desired, being careful of the common good. And whatsoever Maccabees wrote unto Lysias concerning the Jews, the king granted it. See that? So even Maccabees, he's hearing his response, but he's even dealing with it wisely because he knows the Most High delivered us, but at the same time, let's make sure we keep within the confines of the law, not go over and above and beyond, not get bloodthirsty with it and be like, hell with your agreement. We're coming for more. We're going to come to destroy you. He said, okay, let's just, since he's offering peace, give peace back. Because remember in the law, it talks about how we're to engage other nations, right? Which you could say Judas, he's kind of on that Joshua David tip as far as, beginning to expand the rulership, expand the empire. So as we're at wartime, it tells you in the law as far as engaging in combat. If before you take on a nation outside of the Canaanites, of course, we weren't supposed to do any deal with Canaan. But when it comes to any other nations outside of Canaan, it says when we would go to war with the country, it says proclaim peace unto it. And say, we're the Jews, we're the Hebrews, God's with us. You're our property, you belong to us. Pay us tribute. The nation is wise and they go, oh, they're the Jews, their God's with them. Okay, no problem. We'll pay you tribute. Now they're like, oh, the hell with you, the hell with you, and you say you're with your God, whatever. We'll take our chances. Now you make war with them, right? It wasn't just bloodthirsty, like, let's just cut down these nations just because they're out here. Most High made them our slaves, just cut them down. Most High said, give them a chance to acknowledge their position, right? As a nation. We even see, on an individual level that in wisdom, our forefathers did this. Even Christ himself with the centurion, Syrophoenician, they acknowledged their place in Christ. So he didn't just come down upon them harshly. That's what a tyrant would do. Remember, we're all gonna love to be under Christ, even the heathen eventually, because they're gonna see he's an even and just ruler, and that he's the one that's really causing us to not be miserable. Even our own rulers over the ages cause us misery because they've been wicked. But now we actually have peace under this Christ. That's the Hebrews. So we see Judas in similar fashion. He's acknowledging his proclamation for peace, at least until he changes mode or something else.
Right, that's the part. That last part is what you talked in the reference. Because here's another time when Judas is about to make an agreement or covenant with the enemy. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, after they went out and had a war, they're like waving the white flag. It's like, all right, we give up. I'm sorry. I wasn't in. We weren't in our right mind. We want to make peace, right? Mm-hmm. So it's now they're about to try to come and make an agreement or covenant. Mm-hmm. But one would say, nah, why do that?
Right.
Like they was just trying to kill you. They came after you. Like get rid of them. But again, like going into what you were saying as far as for how the Most High has our laws and our statutes, we always give that. We were always, even in the spirit of things, humble enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Right? I'm gonna see if you're gonna see the error in your ways and change your ways. So I'm gonna give you that, right? Because the same thing would have happened to us, where it's like, listen, these guys are just sinners. Let's just kill them all. Moses could have just said, you know what, I'm just gonna kill them all and just start a whole new nation. Right? But he said, no, I'm gonna give them for the doubt, give them the opportunity to repent and see if they come back full circle. So we now can go into history and say, look, time and time again, when we gave you an olive branch, you threw it in our face. Every time. We never threw it in your face. We never went backtrack. You guys always threw it in our face. Right? So history has shown that you deserve the judgment that's coming towards you. From every empire, it's happened. Even up until now, it's happened. So these things it happened that way as a testimony. Even with us, within certain things within Israel, it was a learning experience that we had to go, growing pains. Now we have growing pains with Esau. It was with Ham before. It was another nation. We had to have those growing pains with all of them. So now when the Most High brings that ultimate judgment, it's like, all right, now it's Israel's time to rule. No one can say, well, why is it their time to rule? No, it should be their time to rule. Because now our rulership over everything will be just, right? Infinite, but just, according to how we work with the Most High Spirit.
Come, absolutely.
And just a sidebar, I was just thinking of that. I was doing that. Like the angel came to fight with him. I'm wondering if anyone wanted to have any conversation with the angel. Hey, let me ask you a question.
I know I would.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I was wondering about this. Like Ezra did when you read it in the Apocrypha, right? He was throwing out hundreds of questions and certain things the angel just couldn't tell him. It's like, I wasn't sent to tell you that. Right. I can't tell you that. But, you know, before we go out to war, let me ask you one question.
Are you for us or against us?
I think that was, no, I think it's like other things. It's like jarring on your brain on, how do we get this? How do we do that? Well, what was that time? What did that mean? Like, you know, just a little something stuff. Yeah. Take advantage of the opportunity, right?
Come. I know I would if I had a chance. Got me thinking about Jacob himself, right? And he asked the angel his name that he wrestled with. Yeah. The angel's like, why for do you ask me my name? Yeah. He didn't tell him. Yeah. So you don't know who that angel was, because what he said wasn't finna reveal that, but he came down to give him his name, Israel. Yeah. So it's, like you said, so gotta try at least. Yeah.
I know that there was some personal carnal questions that the disciples actually I was trying to just not in the scriptures. It's not relevant. Right. Some were there, but then like, you know, who's gonna be the greatest? Right? They were thinking carnally. They was like, let me put this in here. I know it's going to be some brothers later on down the line that's going to think carnally just like them. You set this plane, you set the standard right here, right now. Like it's carnal like that.
Con, so to link with when it says the Maccabees consented, verse 15, there we go. You can link, I referred to it, Deuteronomy chapter 20. 10 down to 12. As you read on, it goes into more of the story. Like technically, the whole section goes down to 18. So you can write Deuteronomy 20, 10 to 18. That's the whole section. But I'll just read through it because it's pretty self-explanatory, and then we'll continue. So Deuteronomy, to link with verse 15, Deuteronomy chapter 20, 10 to 18. For Judas, even though he was a mighty warrior, he wasn't a warmonger, right? Everything by the book. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 10. When thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. Verse 11. It shall be, if it answer thee a peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. Verse 12, and if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. Verse 13, and when Yahweh thy power had delivered it into thine hands, so Most High is telling you, I'm going to give it into your hands if they decide to buck against you. Because you're following me, and I'm with you. Like we're reading here with Judas. And when Yahweh thy power delivered into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. Verse 14. But the women and the little ones, and the cattle, and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, thou shalt take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat of the spoil of thine enemies, which Yahweh thy power have given thee. Right? Just to teach them a lesson, right? Take out their strength, right? Their men. 15. Thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations. What are these nations he's talking about? 16. But of the cities of these people which how thy power doth give thee for inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. So when it comes to Canaan, not the same rules. Outside of the nations outside of them, okay. Verse 17.
One question. Canaan was just Africans?
They were Hamites, yeah. Different families of Hamites.
Different families, but there was all of them were the Hamites?
Mm-hmm. It says, thou shalt utterly destroy them. It's going to name them. Namely, the Hittites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, as Yahweh thy power have commanded thee. So you just do the table of nations on them, you'll see they all come out of hand.
And that was every last one of them. No country at all came. Right?
What's that?
I said no country at all. That was all the Hamites.
Yes. Now, not every single Hamite, but just those Hamites that were in the land of Canaan, they were all Hamites. But you had Hamites that lived other places too, like Egypt, other parts of North Africa. You had other Hamites that weren't in Canaan. We said all the people that were in what they call the land of Canaan then. Oh yeah. They were all Hamites.
We couldn't make no agreement with that.
Right. Weren't supposed to. And when we did, we saw it ended up being a thorn in our side. It was a judgment upon us. Like you read in Judges, you read about certain tribes as we were conquering the land. They didn't listen because I think Joshua, he was old and he finally died. And then, the wars kept going, but they didn't all listen the way they should have. And then they went and complained to God, saying, oh, these nations, they're vexed us with their idols and their celebrations. And Mosai came back to them saying, didn't I tell you what to do with the Canaanites? Didn't I tell you they will be a thorn in your side, that they will vex you with their strangeness if you didn't utterly destroy them? Because you know how it is. You and your family can be doing one thing, but now you look out the window, across the river, across the road, and you see, oh, look at our neighbors over there. What they got going on? Oh, they're worshiping that idol. Interesting. I think I might want to try that, right? Before you know it, you found yourself in some nonsense. So Mosai, he already knew. That's why he said, look, I know my people. Cut them off altogether. Said, anytime you look out the window, what do you see? Your own people doing the right thing. So it's like positive peer pressure, right? Righteous peer pressure enforced. Because, we're creatures of habit and, we tend to go with the crowd, right? Right. But if the crowd's doing idolatry, it makes that much harder to do the right thing. And that's part of our proving ground in these times. Because we're surrounded by fools. We have to be that, that example of that shining light in the midst of fools. That's part of our proving ground now. We can't succumb to peer pressure. No one else is doing it. Why should I? Or everyone else is doing it. I should do it too. Right? We have to come out of that. Right? We become more like shepherds than just sheep. So 2 more verses. No, I think I read 17. I'll read 17 and 18. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites or Hivites and the Jebusites, as Yahweh that power have commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against Yahweh your God. See that? So that's the whole key. Not only did he say what to do, he gave us why. And some of us still didn't listen. And we paid for it. Yeah, all different Hamite tribes that were in the land that was promised us.
Good point earlier, but as far as for how the heathens are our enemies, and it's not like we're just physically fighting against them. It's not a physical war as far as why they're enemies, it's spiritual, right? Because they're not following the Most High's way. They weren't given the Most High's law. So it's a spiritual battle that we're tempted to be like them or to follow their ways to draw us away from the Most High. Even when Solomon had his woman, what happened? The reason why it became a plague or a sin unto them because they drew him away from the Most High, right? And that's what happened. That's why even in the laws, don't give your sons to their daughters or your daughters to their sons, because that is going to happen. That's the possibility, high level possibility of that happening of you coming away from the Most High. That's why it's an enemy, because they have their own customs, their own rules, their own laws, their own holidays. They have all that. At one point, that person is going to want to draw back to. So it's like, nah, that's going to be the main adversary that you have under Satan. And then you have a chief one, Esau, but you have these other ones. And Ham, back then, a lot of the paganism and things that they have right now, even Esau, stems from Ham, right? The origins go right back to what Ham had set up in the beginning. And now they just added on, changed the name, changed the ritual, and just made it a seemingly new thing. It's all started back then. So yeah, that was a good point earlier that you brought out, kind of as far as for the enemies being heathen, and it's more spiritual reason that they become our enemies. Because we just say that it's like, I'm not fighting with them. I'm good with them. I'm cool with them. But you don't see the spiritual thing, the spiritual conflict that's going on right now.
Right.
You're not paying attention to it. You're losing the battle right now. You don't even know.
Right. Now that you mentioned that, before we continue on in the second Maccabees, I want to go swiftly, but just put these in your arsenal, because like we talk about always having the scriptures answer our questions all the time, and even cover our people when they, as far as the predicted response, we bring out certain verses. Oh, how could the Bible say that? Or I think it was Aquan was talking about it last night. I'm never going to believe that, right? Or how could the Most High do that? What kind of God would say this or do this? But as far as the nations go, because our people, we got a soft spot for the nations. A lot of us don't feel like we're anybody important unless we marry them or get with them somehow, some way, right? Or embraced by them somehow, some way. We feel like we ourselves aren't important. But as far as the like you said, the spiritual aspect, check this out. First, I'm gonna read a verse that we all know, but then I'm gonna give just a couple of verses to back it up. Just put these in your additional notes, not your links per se with the lesson. Even though we just read in Deuteronomy 20, 10 to 18, you can definitely link with verse 15. This is Isaiah chapter 40. So you don't have to get the verses, just write them down. I'm just gonna read them real quick. Just listen to what I'm saying and write what I'm saying. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15 and verse 17. So Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15 and verse 17. It says, "Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the bounds. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing," right? He's talking about the isles of the Gentiles in this context, right? If you read about going back in Genesis 10. And then it says in verse 17, "All nations before him are as nothing, and they be counted to him less than nothing, and vanity." So you read this, people lose their mind. Oh, you trying to say my husband's nothing? My wife is nothing, according to what you say? Or that I'm an Israelite and that they're just nothing? Right? No, they're not. They're flesh and blood. They bleed just like me. They're here. They're right in front of me. Right? I can see them. Or I go to their country. They have, all these castles and, buildings and pagodas and, shrines and all this other stuff, right? They have a very rich culture, right? Who are you to say that they're nothing? If they're nothing, then why did God make them? Slow down. Let's let the scriptures speak, right? So I'm sure you'll probably hear other things in response to a verse like this, but those are some things I've heard over the years, When you read a verse like that, we'll get worked up.
I didn't say that. The scripture said that.
Right. Now here's added understanding behind that. So now this is Psalms, right? Actually, first let me get the one in Corinthians. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 8. So link this with Isaiah 40:15. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 4. 1 Corinthians 8 and 4. Like I said, just write it down. I'll read it. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 4. It says, as concerning therefore the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols. That's what this chapter is talking about. But check out this next precept. We know that an idol is nothing in the world, and there is none other power but one. Right? We're about to prove that why the nations are nothing, according to Isaiah. It says, we know that an idol is nothing in the world. So now, drop that. Go to Psalms. Psalms 96.
What?
Psalms 96, 4 and 5. Psalms 96, 4 and 5 reads, for Yahweh is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. Verse 5, for the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahweh made the heavens. See that? So if the gods of the nations are idols, and the idols are nothing in the world, you worship nothing, what's that make you? See that? So 1 + 1 = 2. So by their choice, they show themselves to be idols. And of course, when we call ourselves Gentiles, our people that are in a Gentile frame of mind, we worship those same idols. You being the chosen of God, you've made yourself into what? As if you're nothing, because you're following the same thing that you are, even though your soul is meant for more. Now you done lowered yourself to their standard. See that? So we have to make sure we make that connection for the people, where it's not just, because it almost comes off as like name calling, right? And we want to show folks in the scriptures is deeper than that, right? Because you hear us say that, they go, "Oh, you guys just racist," right? And just walk off. It's like, no, you can't walk away on that. That's no. Because my thing is, I'm not trying to convince you, but I need you to understand our position and why. If you understand our position and why, I feel like I've done my job. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's another thing. I can't control that. What I can control is showing you and making it clear what our position is and why, give a reason behind it. So you can make a conscious choice to say, okay, we're nuts. Not to say, oh, we're nuts, and you don't even hear what we're saying and why. You know what I mean? So that's the difference, at least for me, I like to make. So yeah, you can read those two with that. There's other verses, of course, but I just like to use those two in conjunction with showing that the nations are nothing. I thought oftentimes we'll just say the nations are nothing, and people just hear us teach that and go, "Oh, guys are full of hate. Guys hate speech, hate speech." And, anything else you say after that doesn't hold any validity. And it's just like, no, not true. It's called you might want to call it self-hate speech. That's a form of self-hate. You worship an idol.
In the celebrity world now, in the nation world, they look at people who are celebrities or people who are high net worth. And so, oh yeah, there's something they work all of this money, millions of dollars, and they're celebrities, and cover magazines and so on and so forth, running after them and taking their pictures and everything. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to certain people, like the average Israelite, might be teaching, I hear you nothing, he ain't nobody.
Yeah. Flip side, they do that to us every day. Yeah. Kind of goes back to what we talked about in class last night about what's truly valuable when you show love to your brother and sister. The value is really with your soul. That has the most value above all. Beyond, like you said, your net worth, your possessions, right? How many people like you, or follow you on social media? It's all about whether or not you have your soul. That's what really gives you value. Right? Sit here. You stand up. Not realizing he's the chosen. He's the one going to be burned up in the lake. You got to go backwards. Or like I always even talk about within Israel, just the bad rap that Haiti catches, right? Where it's just like among all the tribes, it's like people look down upon Haiti, even our own people. Like, oh, don't call me a Haitian. I'm a Haitian, right? But you look at the scriptures, you're like, wow, of all the tribes, they're the ones that are joined unto the Lord. That's what their name means. So they're like the prized tribe above all, where they were considered worthy enough where Most High said, I'm not even going to give you a land. I'm going to take you nigh unto me. And all of Israel's tenth, as they give to me, I'm going to have them give it to you. That puts Levi on a high level as a tribe. But the way it's flipped now, like it says in Malachi, right? I'll make you base and content among the people. To where now they have a negative outlook when you talk about Haiti, that you're from Haiti. Even to where you still have, people represent Haitian pride, Levi, but then, you'll still see in conversation people who are Haitian. Like they'll say it in conversation with people in different backgrounds. They go, oh, I'm Haitian. I'm Haitian. It's not like I'm Haitian. It's I'm Haitian. But what? Haitian. Oh, okay. There's a little pause, right? People are like, oh. And then in their mind, what's that's going on. Oh, that's too bad. Oh, you're from Haiti? Oh. Yes, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like that's the vibe that's put off because the earthquake that happened, and because they're still recovering from that. Just because the news stopped talking about it, that put them kind of in a big media light for a while, and then you start getting more stories about them, how the poor of their people survive. They don't talk about the middle and upper class of Levi and how they live. All you hear about is the poor, the poorest of the poor of them, and they're making food out of dirt and stuff like that. Those are the stories that like resonate. You go, oh man, Haiti. You talk about going on vacation, like people in America. You go, oh, I'm going to the Caribbean. Oh, okay, what country? You'll mention every place, but hey, I'm going to Haiti. You going to Haiti for vacation? What? Out of all the islands, you want to go there? Realize there's a prophecy associated with that. But the truth, you realize that's actually a place you want to be. Those are people you actually want to engage with. Because these are those that are joined unto the Lord. Moses and Aaron came out of Haiti, right? But in the minds of the people, it's totally backwards. They got to totally reverse. So that's the power of the blessing and the curse of the Most High. He can take your strength and then make it your great weakness. All right, enough on that. So let's go back to Maccabees. Let's read on verse 16, 2 Maccabees 11:16. Second Maccabees 11:16, it says, and there were letters written unto the Jews from Lysias, as to this effect. Lysias, unto the people of the Jews, sendeth greeting. John and Absalom, who were sent from you, delivered me the petition subscribed, and made request for the performance of the contents thereof. Therefore, what things soever we were meet to be reported to the king, I have declared them, and he hath granted as much as might be. If then ye will keep yourselves loyal to the state, hereafter also I will endeavor to be a means of your good. Right? So we don't fight with each other, we're the Greeks, we're big and bad, right? But as long as you don't make war with us, I'll honor these agreements. But of the particulars I have given order both to these and the other that came from me to commune with you. Fare you well, the 108th and 40th year, and 4 and 20th day of the month. Dias Corinthius, right? Well, you'll see it spelled Dioscorus, right? So every nation, they have their own names for the month, right? 22. Now the king's letter contained these words. So now the letter from the king through Lysias, right? As far as who he answers to. King Antiochus unto his brother Lysias sends greeting. Since our father is translated unto the gods, because they still believe in their pantheon of gods, right? Because we already read about the end that he meant. Our will is that they that are in our realm live quietly, and that everyone may attend unto his own affairs. We understand also that the Jews would not consent to our father for to be brought unto the custom of the Gentiles, but rather keep their own manner of living. For the which cause they require of us that we should suffer them to live after their own laws, right? So you see that it's not even a matter of, oh, we're trying to overthrow you or take you over, right? Just leave us alone. Let us keep our law, right? We just want to be left alone. Like we see people even nowadays, right? Trying to figure out why these cops keep shooting us? Why they keep cutting our programs? Why they keep doing like roughing us up here? We don't cause any problems. They talk about black on black crime. Fine, we shooting each other. We're not really shooting y'all like that. We just want to be left alone, right? We just want to, either be left alone and be given a chance to do what we do best, right? When it comes to jobs and professions, right? We don't want to be told no over and over again when we are qualified for things, right? Why do they keep messing with us? So we see that here and throughout history, the heathen molesting the Jews or Israel, especially if we're not found a way of righteousness. 25, wherefore our mind is that this nation shall be in rest, and we are determined to restore them their temple, that they may live according to the customs of their forefathers. All right, off to a good start. Great start, actually, to allow us to restore our temple, because on a carnal level, the temples is like the reflection of the people. I remember one of the brothers before us brought that out. He's like, always look at whatever the state, the temple, ever since we had a temple, always look at the state of the temple, and it's always a reflection of the state of the people. So the temple is well adorned. The Levites, the sons of Aaron are in there doing all the works, the righteous sacrifices, throughout the year. Then that's a reflection of the people being, in a righteous format or righteous position. But now, if you look at the temple, it's destroyed, overthrown. Look at it today. There's an Islamic mosque set up there. Was the second greatest holy place amongst Islam. Is where our temple is supposed to be, right? Among other things that are happening in that holy city, let alone the temple. That's a reflection of the state of Israel as a whole, right? Because right now we're like, what was that scripture that talks about? Like we were called Lo Ami, which in the Hebrew is Laha'im, not a people, or not my people. It's like you're not even a people anymore, as far as the way we've been cast down due to our choice to go against the Most High. So it's like, you look at that, you see the temple now, and you see the people as a whole, we're a mess. But at least we have a remnant, because otherwise we'd be like Sodom and Gomorrah, like it says in the prophecy, another prophecy. So the Most High left us a remnant, and we're part of that remnant. The key is just to, stay true. If you've been called, stay in that calling so that you can be chosen. But we know we're all not going to do that. So reading on in 26, thou shalt do well, therefore, to send unto them and grant them peace, that when they are certified of our mind, they may be of good comfort and ever go cheerfully about their own affairs. And the letter of the king unto the nation of the Jews was after this manner. King Antiochus sent a greeting unto the council and the rest of the Jews. If you fare well, we have our desire. We are also in good health, right? So hope all is well with you. If so, we're happy. We're in good health too. Like you say when you greet someone, right? How you doing? Everything's good. How about you? Everything's fine. If it's not, you hopefully you would mention it, right? Not just a save face, but like, oh, I'm hitting a rough patch right now, going through some things, Oh, sorry to hear that. If I can be in any help, just let me know. What's the issue? If I can't, maybe I can find someone that can, right? That's what friends do, whether it be individuals or nations, right? Supposed to. 28, if you fare well, we have our desire. We are also in good health. 29, Menelaus declared unto us that your desire was to return home and to follow your own business. Wherefore they that will depart shall have safe conduct unto the 13th day of Xanthicus. 30th day of Xanthicus with security. And the Jews shall use their own manner of meats and laws as before. And none of them any manner of ways shall be molested, for things ignorantly done. Right? So we'll continue our affairs, let them continue their affairs, right? Everything goes smoothly, the way that they would normally do it. Because we know, as we've been reading through Maccabees, most of the time the Greeks aren't doing it. They're like, this, don't do that. You know, eat this unclean meat. Celebrate, you know, change it and say Jupiter, defender of strangers. Don't say Yahweh, say our God. Right? It says, and none of them, any manner of way shall be molested for things ignorantly done. 32. I have sent also Menelaus, that he may comfort you. Fare you well. In the 148th year, in the 15th day of the month, Xanthicus, the Romans also sent unto them a letter containing these words. Quintus Memmius and Titus Manlius, names are funny. We see that the names even sound different because they come up from the Latin as opposed to the Greek. But still Esau. Quintus Memmius and Titus Manlius, ambassadors of the Romans, send greeting unto the people of the Jews. Whatsoever Lysias, the king's cousin, hath granted, therefore we also are well pleased. Right? So now we got the Greeks and the Romans in agreement with each other concerning us and how to deal with us. So this is definitely something to mark in history, right? Because we know it's usually some kind of problem. And we know going forward in the future in the history, we know it wouldn't remain this way, sadly. Verse 36, but touching such things as he judged to be referred to the king, after ye had advised thereof, send one forthwith that we may declare it as it is convenient for you. We are now going to Antioch, right, which is one of their cities in the Seleucid dynasty, right? It's actually funny because this might be a little foreshadowing, because we know when the Romans would take authority, their chief cities would actually be chief Greek cities that they would refashion for themselves. Remember, Alexandria was part of Ptolemy's part of the Greek Empire, right? Named after, of course, Alexander. But then when the Romans took it from the Greeks, that became one of their chief major cities, right? Like Alexandria and Rome was like kind of like what we would call like New York City for America, right? It was like their chief city of commerce. See a lot going on in Alexandria in Egypt, part of the Roman Empire. Antioch was another big city, and it says they were known for having a lot of earthquakes there too. But that was Greeks at first. It's named after Antiochus, right? But then when the Romans took it over, they kept the name, but it became like a cheap Roman city for commerce and things like that. It's kind of funny these cities being mentioned. Like I said, you might say it's a little foreshadowing, because we know the Romans at this time, they weren't the dominant empire. It was still the Greeks. When the Greeks would wane as the years would go on, and the Romans would come on the scene and be much stronger over a couple centuries. 37. Therefore send some with speed, that we may know what is your mind. Farewell. This 108th and 40th year, the 15th day of the month, Xanthicus. Right? So just different letters, just proclaiming their peace amongst each other and towards us. And hey, if there's any issues, just let us know. Send and let us know right away. Back then you had somebody actually was sent with the message, right? Maybe carrier pigeon. Nowadays you just send an email, right? And send a text, get the message right away. It's funny because you might say, "Oh man, it's so horrible back then." You had to write a letter and send it to somebody. But think about it as far as spiritual gifts. As far as we talk about, fruit of the spirit. As far as faith, patience. There's a lot of fruit of the spirit that go into writing a letter, the time it takes to just think it out, send it, and then to wait for it to get to that place, hope that it'll reach there, and then waiting for a response to come back. There's a certain wisdom behind that I think we lose with something as expedient as this. Like I said, something on a spiritual level, but even though, look at it carnally, you would say, of course, it's, I wouldn't send a snail mail, I would just send an email. I could do so much more because we have technology. Why still, write a letter? But really sit back and consider it. It's like, there's actually more to gain from writing a letter on that level as opposed to just say a text or email.
Patience is one of them, like you just mentioned, is the spirit that wanes with today's society because back even when I grew up, sending a letter, calling someone on the phone, and them not answering, you don't have, there was, answering machine was used, but it wasn't relied upon. So you just, all right, they're not there. Nowadays, if you send a call, you know that they see that there's a missed call on the phone. You send a text message, in your mind, you know you got a text message. What took you so long to answer? Like everything is, microwave. Like, well, you didn't answer me.
Yeah.
So today's generation of people kind of lose patience real quick with things.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so that's the same thing you mentioned. Where back then it was like, I sent the letter. I don't know when I'm gonna get it back, but I just have to get it back at some point. I just wait for 2 weeks or however long they take to read it, digest it, then write something back to me. Now you want to get it within an hour. I sent a good long email or a text message. It's been 2 hours. I heard nothing back. Then your mind starts playing. This is what starts going on in your head. Like, well, maybe she didn't, maybe he didn't, or they didn't, or whatever. Yeah. I had this conversation with someone I was overseas about just writing.
Yeah.
A lost art.
And the motor skills of the teachers.
Yeah.
And like I said, just on a physical and spiritual level, things that it has you do. Even when we talk about, when the elders, it does in Ecclesiasticus, when the elders in place use not many words, speaketh, I think it says, speaketh, thou art asked, scarcely if you are twice asked. I might be saying it wrong, but scarce when they are twice asked. Like if you say something, you're giving a report or telling somebody what's going on, and they're like, huh? Like they can't really understand what you said. It's like, okay, you're kind of compelled to narrow it down and get to it, right? So like with a letter, because it's not like, oh, I got to send whatever and I'll get something back real quick. You're kind of compelled to take your time, work on your penmanship. You might even draw some picture on a letter or spray some kind of fragrance on it. So when a person gets a letter, they, my sweetheart, you read it, you see the, so it's like all those things is kind of teaching. You kind of take your time, use your words wisely, carefully, right? Even if it's going to be a long letter, you're going to put a whole lot in it, But now it's just like,
no, it's not a little personal like it used to be. I mean, you have some people that's like a, certain, even with what y'all kind of talking about with certain celebrities, letters that they wrote, it's like worth lots of money because it's very personal because of the craft of how they wrote it out. Like when people do crimes or forgeries, you have to go into the science of being able to understand how he curves his L's and how he makes the A and this, that, and the third, because that's him. It's like a signature. Right. It's like a fingerprint. Yeah, that's how you express yourself in writing, and it's detailed for you. But there's a lot. It's like little depths into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll take a half-hour break. Feel free to get something to eat. Something doesn't require heat, since we know it's the Sabbath. You can have leaven, of course, because Feast of Unleavened Bread is now over. And when we convene in about a half hour, which will be about 5 after 2, both sides will. So see everybody then, and then we'll go into 2 Maccabees 12 and close out the service. So shalom, and we'll see you then.